Hey, everybody. This is Kerry Schafer, also sometimes known as Carrie Ann King, and you are watching or listening to Tell Me Your Secrets. So today is extra fun and kind of a little impromptu, actually, because we just set this up yesterday, I think. So I emailed Teri and I said, hey, what are you doing tomorrow? And she said, not much. So I want to introduce you to Teri Clark Linden, who is an amazing person, just as a human being, for starters, which is, always awesome. And she also has narrated a bunch of my Carrie Ann King books, and we have collaborated on my independent Kerry Schafer novels. We're going to talk about all this a little bit. But first of all, I want to introduce to you the lovely Teri Clark Linden.
Hi. Thank you. So excited. This is my first one of these, and thank you so much for it's so educational. We were talking before, about I'm like, what is this platform you're on, and how did you set this up? And so I'm in the booth because we're all in the house. My husband Dave and my son Sam, who's in 9th grade, and so just to make sure that there's my husband's constantly on the phone, conference calls, or just, anything happening. I thought, I'm just going to sit in the little TARDIS and have total privacy.
Well, which is really awesome. And since you already brought that up, for those of you who are watching, and if you're listening, I'm sorry you don't get to see this, but I always had a bunch of curiosity. In our minds, we're like, oh, the sound booth, it's going to look like really fancy. Like when you see on a movie and it's like, music recording studio and all that. And I was
some are. Yeah, some are.
Do you want to just move your camera around a little bit and show everybody what your booth looks like there?
So, and let's see. So there's still my big face. There's the microphone.
Yeah.
And then behind that, if you could see the monitor back here. Yes, right. This big monitor. I always turn it on. You could see. There we go. Yeah. Okay. So that, And then actually what the laptop is sitting on is an old beatbox. But that's where I usually keep my iPad.
Oh, sure.
Because I narrate from iAnnotate. And it's real small. So, and then up here, this is kind of fun. My son, when he was really little, he made that sign.
Oh, bang head here.
Bang head here, HEAR, which I think that was a mistake. I don't think he realized how acoustics hear audio, how actually, cool that is, because it makes sense. But so that's when I get stressed out. I can bang my head there, or any of the studio foam that's that's around, but it's real tiny. You can see there's a little glass behind me here,
right,
on the door, but it's real small.
So did you guys build it yourself? Did you put the foam up in there, or did?
So that all came with this. This is there's different companies now that sell these. They're prefabbed, and they come kind of on a big semi and flatbed truck, and panels all wrapped up. But at the time when I got this, which was about 2013, there weren't a lot of companies, because the audiobook business wasn't what it was then, as to what it is now, kind of supply and demand thing. So this is a whisper room. And I was told at the time, a lot of news correspondents, when they're doing work from, on site, like the Olympics and stuff, this is what they build. So they have these so that they can, work on site. So it's a whisper room, and I think this one is about 8 by 6 feet. My husband and I put it together, and we survived that. I think that was a kind of a test.
That would be a test, yeah.
Marriage. He's amazing. He's incredibly. He fixes stuff, and I've never had to call an IT person in almost 20 years, or a plumber, or anything. I mean, it's like you'll sit there and just, got 2 wet dry vacs, not 1 but 2, just anything. And so he's really great, but still it was heavy hauling everything upstairs.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I was curious, because as I as I started looking a little more seriously into podcasting, I discovered that, a lot of people do a lot of work to make their environment, even just for podcasting, a little more sound friendly. So you can buy that soundproofing foam. There are people who actually apparently get into bed and do their podcasting under the covers because there's
no, that's great. That's actually, and there's nothing wrong with that. Pat Fraley, who is my friend, and I came to know him as his student, and I consider one, he's my master teacher. He's out in LA, and he'd go to his garage and he would just record stuff under a quilt or a blanket. And he's somebody who's like one of the top talent teachers out in Los Angeles.
Right.
Also, I found out recently, I've been doing a lot of listening and watching other people's webinars and educational things kind of in my field, voiceover. SAG-AFTRA does a lot with, film, TV, just webinars, interviews with people. But there's SOVAS, SOVAS, which is a Society of Voice Arts and Sciences. And they're doing this wonderful free one of these every Thursday night. And the person they were interviewing said, oh yeah, car. I think it was a car. You sit in a car with upholstered fabric seats, and it's very good acoustics. And it reminded me, like I've talked to a lot of, I've heard a lot of people like out in LA, and they get, more in LA, you get a lot of more voice auditions than I get here in Ohio. But I'm in Yellow Springs, Ohio, by the way. Everybody should know where the heck I am, the floating TARDIS. But they'll just run something off in their car. And I know someone who booked a huge job just from doing an audition on her iPhone in her car. So
wow,
you don't need all this really.
But, I think though it's different if you're narrating a whole audiobook. Because
well, that's it. Yeah. It is.
I have to say, I just, just for fun, I recorded myself reading one chapter of one of my Kerry Ann.
That was awesome.
One of my Kerry Ann King books. It was not easy. You think, oh, it's just, it's reading, right? It's not easy. And you get tired and your voice gets tired. How do you how many hours a day do you work?
So that's a good question. I usually shoot for anywhere between 2 and 3 per finished hours of recording. So that's with no mistakes, because we call it rolling along. We punch edit, we punch roll on the software that I use, which is Pro Tools, which is kind of standard in audiobook world and narrating. And so, it's 1 per finished hour. And to do 1 per finished hour, it usually takes me anywhere from 90 minutes to 2 hours. So I am usually working anywhere from 4 to 6 hours. But because it's at home, I get up to pee. I get up to go scoop the poop out of the yard from the shepherds. I get distracted by emails. I go eat and watch Young and the Restless. I mean, it's like and then I've got life. I've got to go pick Sam up at school. Not so much anymore.
Wait! I'm way backtracking. I have so Young and the Restless. Like seriously, this is still around.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's one of my guilty pleasures. So it also, I think it's like comfort food. It reminds me of time spent with my grandmother. I was really close to my grandmother, who I called Nana, and she passed away in 2003. But that was her play. She called them plays, and she introduced me to that when I was visiting one summer when I was 14. And Phyllis, played by Michelle Stafford, Phyllis was her favorite character, and she's my favorite character. And so, I guess somehow I kind of feel close to Nana when I'm watching YNR.
Yeah. The only time I ever got hooked on a soap was when I was in school, actually, and I was at in a dorm, and after class we all used to congregate in a lobby, and everybody watched a soap opera, and that was I got hooked on it for a while.
Yeah, yeah, they are. Well, the thing
they're
is,
very addictive.
Intentionally, you can literally step away and come back, you know, a year later and you could just pick it right up.
Right.
I say this all the time. Some of the best actors, it's the best acting is on soap operas because it moves very fast. The set moves
Mhm.
very fast,
Right.
and it's so many words, and a lot of it is exposition. And they're getting fresh pages the day that
All
they're
the
recording,
time.
and it moves
Yeah.
so quickly. And you know, not to knock the writing, but the writing isn't always the greatest, easiest. You know, you just have to say the words. You can't try to put anything on. I did a class once, and I got this script from One Life to Live. And the very end, and I went through the whole scene and it was fine. And the very end, I had to say, why, Bo, why? And I couldn't say those words without being like, why, Bo, why? I was like, just say it, why, Bo? And my teacher, who'd been on a soap opera, he was like, you just have to say the words. Stop trying to, like, you know, put emotion on it. And I
Right.
think it's really, I mean, the actors are just the volume of what they do. It's like,
It's impressive.
it's
I think
intense. Yeah.
their memories must be really fantastic.
Well, yeah, right, right.
So while we're talking about this, though, I do have a question. So have you been in any movies or anything on your way, you know, along
my
just
way, yeah.
it's like I see you as doing this now. Like this is so important because it's books. Books
Yeah,
matter
right.
the
Well, and
most
you're
to
an
me.
author extraordinaire, you know, so
Aw.
like books, yeah, yeah.
So
Yeah.
let me rephrase that. Have you been in any
I know,
movies?
on my way to be in a movie. Yes, I have. So I actually you know, theater was my foray into acting. And I then out of college was like, well, I just have to do anything to work, you know, just any job that came along.
Right.
And so that
Were you a waitress at any point?
that here we now wait. So we're gonna go from movies. It's gonna be a full circle moment here. Okay. Let me just say that the most recent film I appear in is Dark Waters, which is about, I consider him a true American hero, Rob the Lot, who spent 20 years of his life. He's a corporate defense lawyer in Cincinnati. So here it's like a neighbor of where I live in Ohio. Um, he's the one who brought to light, made DuPont responsible for the C18, I think it's C18, the chemicals in Teflon.
Oh yeah.
It's pretty much, yeah, all of that. Remember that in like in the late 2000s when that news
Mhm.
hit? So this guy spent like 20 years of his life, you know, researching this and fighting with, you know, corporate DuPont to get them accountable for this and to pull it, you know, it was in everything, our carpets and all that. So the movie's called Dark Waters, and Mark Ruffalo produced it, and he stars as Rob a lot, and Anne Hathaway's in it, and Tim Robbins,
Wow.
and so I got to work with Anne Hathaway and Tim Robbins in a scene, which is mostly what I do. They're called day players, and you kind of, you know, you step in and you do your job, and then you go home. You know, and it's like a 1 to 2 day stint. But yeah, so I play a neurologist, and so what I was going to say full circle about that is that I when I was in Chicago, that's where I went to college at Roosevelt University in Chicago, and for 3 years I waited tables at Ed DeBevick's. And Ed DeBevick's was set to look like an old-fashioned 50s diner, and the wait staff were all the actors, writers, creatives, improvisers, mostly those people. And we all had personas. Mine was Wilma because I had the red hair and I loved the Flintstones. So I went by Wilma. And we all these old-fashioned uniforms. And we got to be sassy with the
Right.
customers.
Oh, how fun.
Yeah, and that was like why I lasted 3 years at that job, because I waited tables a long time, but like it wasn't, you know, I was like, but this was fun. And I have a lot of friends still to this day from that job. So I found out recently that David Schwimmer from Friends, because he's from Chicago too,
Uh-huh.
he also waited tables at Ed DeBevick's. Not
Oh.
when I was there, our paths didn't cross, but there was an Ed DeBevick's in Beverly Hills, and Mark Ruffalo worked at Ed DeBevick's in Beverly Hills. And I was like, you know, why couldn't I have known this when I was in makeup, and I never know what to say. I never, I'm just like, hi, I'm your neurologist. And later in the day, Mark Ruffalo, he asked me something. He goes, "Oh, I thought you really were a neurologist." Like, he thought I was being serious when I said that. So I was
wow,
I
good
was
acting.
like, foot in mouth. I know. I never know what to say. But yeah, so that, it's kind of, yes, I did wait tables, and most recently I've been in dark waters. And
Awesome.
yeah. So
do you have a favorite? This is my last movie star question. We're moving back to audio.
I love you say movie star. That's really kind.
Oh, but it's true. Do you have like a favorite? I get fangirly about a few writers that I, get really excited about that are so awesome. Is there like one person that you got to work with that was like over the top for you? Like, wow, I got to meet so and so, or
oh wow. Gosh. It's so funny. I get that way. I get fangirly about everybody, and I just have to just keep it totally together. I've worked, I got to work with Viola Davis before The Help came out.
Wow.
It's like, so that was really amazing, and she was so totally cool and nice. Working with Tim Robbins was pretty neat because he's Shawshank Redemption. He's
right,
just amazing. And he's this towering presence. He's 6'5".
Oh, really?
And I'm in makeup, and I see him sitting there, and I just kind of lean over, and I was like, "Hey, just I'm Teri. I'm playing this role, and I worked with your sister a million years ago in a play in Chicago." And it's like his face you just lit right up. And he was like, "You did?" And the next thing I know, he like gets up, he gives me a hug, and he takes his phone and he puts it in front of us, and he's like, "Here, let's take a selfie, and I'll send it to her." And it was just really, it was like a full circle moment. It was really cool. So yeah, so that was really neat.
That's really fun. I love that. It's just a reminder. And actually, I didn't ask you this question, so I need to now. So it's kind of funny, actually, because before Teri and I got on, she was just a little bit, I've never done this before. I don't know what to expect. And I was like, know. You work in movies.
I know. I'm like,
this is just casual. But my Viking always has this thing he says that no matter how famous you are or how rich or how whatever, you got to put your pants on one leg at a time.
Yeah. Well,
and if you eat enough chocolate, well, actually, I'm not going to finish that one because we are live, but it's like, so I am going to ask you, Teri, when you put your pants on, are you a right leg or a left leg first person?
Oh, I've never thought of that. I don't know. I have no idea.
Me either.
I'm going to think of it, though. I'm going to think of it tomorrow when I put my pants on.
Well, and then you can let me know later. So we have questions for you that people asked at the beginning that I need to get to. And there are things that I want to do, too. So somebody Robin wanted to know, well, she asked if you'd done any acting, and we've answered that question, but did you do radio at all before doing audiobooks?
That's a great question. I didn't do radio in the sense of having a show or being a DJ or anything, but I did, and I still do, commercials. So I kind of my microphone, how to be behind a microphone, how to manipulate it for sound and effect, all of that stuff. It came from doing a lot of commercials, and then also, I guess you'd call it e-learning now, but kind of back in the day when I'd have to go into people's studios and there was no internet. I sound like, back in the day, there was no internet, and we just used cups with a string, it's corporate narration. So like the in-house, kind of guides, training, stuff like that. And so I did a lot of that stuff, which is very much like reading. It was an easy transition into nonfiction books, or self-help or stuff like that, because a lot of that instructional corporate stuff. So yeah, radio in that sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, very cool. Thank you. And then, you just did this. This is a great segue because you just did this awesome voice. I love and I'm killing myself laughing about that because it's the whole, well, when I was young, we walked to school through.
I know. I have one of those stories. I do. We did. I mean, I was in Michigan when there was snow. That's where I grew up. And I would trudge where you literally had to like lift one leg up out of the snow to just even take a step. Yeah. Get to the bus stop. My toes are frozen. And the rule of thumb was if the bus is 15 minutes late, you get to go home. And that bus would every time it would come, it's like 14 minutes and 58 seconds, and there's the bus. So yeah, I've got to like watch my sub references too, because I'm talking about, the Rockford Files or something, and people are like, what?
Yeah. Here I also remember though with the cold. So there's my little cold story. So we didn't have a bus, so somebody drove us because we lived way out of town. And anyway, if it was cold enough that the buses couldn't run, however, and the school was closed, like 30 degrees, usually below zero, it would have to be Fahrenheit for that to happen. Then we went home and went skating and sledding.
Oh, right.
That's awesome. There was not that much to do inside. We didn't have the internet. We didn't have the internet games or, online stuff. Although, So anyway, you go out until you froze and then came in and warmed up.
That's right. And everything was dripping wet.
So how did you learn to do these different character voices? I'm always curious about that too. Like when you narrate my books, you do this wonderful job of finding a different voice for each character. And how do you do that?
So it's training. That's the first part of it. I went to college for a theater degree. That's the only way my dad was going to get me to college. And I'm lucky. I'm really privileged. I'm blessed and lucky. And I feel totally privileged that I have that base now. So the acting training came in. That's part of it. So because in acting, you're always doing different voices depending on who you are. I mean, and then I've always been like, my dream would be go out to LA and try to, even at my age, try to do character cartoon and all of that. I love it. Love what, I mean, I can hardly get my son to watch a cartoon movie with me, but I mean, until he was in high school, let's watch cartoons. I mean, we still do with Bob's Burger. Let's watch that, Simpsons. And then when I started doing stuff from home in the late 2000s, that's when I started training with Pat Fraley in LA. And so I went out to LA, or he'd come to Chicago, and I go back to Chicago and take his character voice workshops. And working with Pamela Lewis, who is a character voiceover from New York. And I teach. Sometimes I'll teach beginning people who are just interested in it. Or my favorite is kids. I go to my son's school and they'll have career day, and I'll work with middle schoolers on just basic placement. So it's kind of like you have a base. 5 different places where you can put your voice, and then you build from there. I pretty much, when I'm reading a book, I think about somebody as that person, like doing that role. So it might be like, oh, this is like Allison Janney doing CJ Craig in West Wing. And then I do what I call bad impressions of them. Not that I try to do a bad impression, but it's just, it's just me trying to adopt the attitude, the vocal tone, pitch, all of that. And then the general attitude, point of view of that person. And then it's different for audiobooks because you can't, I did like that, hey, this voice, you can't do that in an audiobook. I wouldn't be able to sustain it, first of all, but unless it's like a children's book or something, it's just audiobooks are such a specific nuance, and they're so intimate I had a friend. Hi, Michelle. I know you're listening.
She is. She's here.
She was she was listening to Dead Before Dying, your Dead Before Dying, and she said I was listening to it in bed. And it was all of a sudden like it creeped her out because she's laying in bed and it's like, and we're hockey moms together. So she hears, and she's hearing in, my voice in her head. And she said it was like creepy to try to get used to that. But it's such an intimate medium that you can't I can't just tell a story and then all of a sudden, go into this person here. It's like, you're going to be like, well, that's a cartoon now. So it's all, nuance and subtlety.
And that makes sense. It's interesting because when you first, when you sent me a test narration for Maureen for our first book we did, Dead Before Dying, I said, I like it, but it's not, she's a little darker than that, or not. That wasn't a snarkier. I can't remember what I said. She's a tough old bird, Maureen. And you said, oh, I can drop it a little. And I didn't know what you meant, but then you did it.
Right.
And it worked. So.
Right. And that's just great to be able to get, because it's rare to get feedback like that anymore from an author. Directors are obsolete unless I do know people who have done this, and I've not done it yet, but you hire a director. And you, just like you're saying, it's like, oh, okay, well, I have this idea for, these characters. This is the story. This is what I'm thinking about for voices. And let me send you a sample. Because when I first started doing this, I was living in Michigan and I was driving 2.5 hours to Grand Haven, where Brilliance Audio is located. Right. And I was going into their studios and working with an engineer who was doing all of the recording, and then working with a director who'd also prepped and read the script and was there to kind of, keep me on track and with energy, and pronunciations and things like that. And now, I wear all these hats myself. So it's nice when I can get feedback like that. Otherwise, you do like when we work through the audiobook exchange, ACX on Audible, and they do say, put up a 15-minute sample, but that doesn't always give you, like for every voice, for every character or scene or feeling. And so a lot of authors on that platform, they'll do auditions and they'll have specific scenes because they want to hear, if you're the right energy, right voice. Right.
Well, and we'd work together before. So when Terry and I decided to come together and do the Shadow Valley books, actually, it was Terry's idea, I believe. Like, I think you hit me up.
I did. Yeah, I did. I was like, oh, you're doing these and they're not on audio. Can I do them? Yeah.
Right. Well, what was really cool about that was my books at the time were still, I was trying to get the rights back to them from a publishing contract that was not optimal for me. Yeah. And the rights that were still available, the only ones that were still available were audio. So I was like, you know what? Why don't we? Why don't we just do that? I can do that. So we went ahead and we did that. And it was so much fun. I was so excited.
Oh, they're great stories. I just, my favorite part about all of them, well, it's the first paranormal genre I've ever narrated. But my favorite part is that the protagonist is, she's 60, isn't she?
Turning
60, this just crass, so basically I noticed this too. If this was set in the UK and they put it on, the BBC produced it and it was cast for, on camera, it would, it's like, that's where you would see it. Right. Because, I watch so much UK, British, all of that, episodics through various streaming platforms. And majorly their protagonists are my age, your age, older even, if you believe, so that's saying a lot. But they're like, over 40, 45, and multiple, and stars of the show. Yeah. So you'll have like 4 women and they're all, 40 to 75 and they're the main stars of the show. And where is that here? It's still not here. I mean,
Right.
it's not. Yeah, so I just so appreciate that. It's just great.
Well, I would love for it to be more of a thing here. And so, it's my own little small, it's one reason with these books. When I first wrote them, I was told that I wouldn't be able to probably sell them. And I was like, well, because of the age of the protagonist. And it's like, nobody's interested.
Oh, that's interesting. I wouldn't think of that for audio. I would think like anything in audio would go.
Well, but that wasn't just
crazy.
audio. That was for the book itself. And, me, I just I have a thing about ageism. It really, well, it pisses me off, frankly. So I'm just like, you know what? We're all going to be that age someday if we're lucky. So let's start treating everybody good now. Everybody's human. So anyway, very fun. And I love doing this with you. Now, Teri, we have news. I do want to talk about this. So World Tree Girl. One reason we're doing this today, World Tree Girl, we've been waiting. It's been extra slow. Teri finished recording it 6 weeks ago, I think. And I don't know,
a while ago.
We've been waiting and waiting for them to process it and get it ready. So it's finally live.
Yay.
So if you enjoyed Dead Before Dying, you can now also listen to World Tree Girl, which is awesome. And then there's other really cool news about that. Do you want to talk about the award nomination thing?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So it was oh gosh, I know. It's just
is it Audies or something?
No. It's the independent audiobook award.
What it was called, right?
Here Now Festival.
Yeah.
And they're out of Kansas, and God love them. They're going to hold their independent audio awards virtually this season, and so I think it's June. And I've never attended, and I never submitted, and it kind of came on my into my purview last year. I think I had a couple of friends who went, narrators, and I went, oh, I should do that. And so I they had a paranormal category, and so I sent 20 minutes from
Dead Before Dying.
Dead Before Dying. Yeah. And it was I was nominated for one of 5 narrators for best paranormal narration for Dead Before Dying by you.
Right, which is just super exciting.
Really cool. Yeah. Really, really cool. So
that's
very
awesome.
Exciting.
Something to look forward to in this
very
time
much. I'm just glad I'm glad the book is out there. I just think it's great press for the book. It's great press for the story. So
I'm excited about it. We have a question from actually I think Michelle would like to know about the various characters and dialect changes. Do you have to work really hard to protect your voice? And I'm going to guess yes.
Oh, that's good.
My voice got tired just narrating that one chapter. How do you protect your voice?
I think my voice, just like muscles, when we work out our muscles, I have a lot of longevity because I'm using it all the time. And when I'm working, I am breathing. I have support, like from my singing and acting on stage days and everything, from the diaphragm muscle. But I'm constantly hydrating, lots of water. I don't drink a lot of caffeine, so I don't drink coffee. I stopped that a couple years ago. I do drink black tea, so I'll have a couple cups of that, and then maybe some green tea. But I stay away from, like if I'm narrating, I wouldn't have green tea. It dries you out. Anything with mint or, like if you have a cold, the stuff that, what is that? Menthol. And it's tough during not just cold season, but allergy season. And we're right here in Yellow Springs in the Dayton, Ohio area. We're in what's called Sinus Valley, the Miami Valley. Horticulturists, good word for a narrator. Horticulturists have apparently come kind of from all over the place to study what's here. The allergies are insane here. And before we were, kind of told stay at home, stay healthy, stay at home. I had just embarked on going and having allergens injected into me once a week at a nose and throat place since last October. I did the whole testing, not food, but off the charts high for corn dust, which I'm like, corn dust, that's interesting. But because we're just so many cornfields around here, grasses and all of that. And so I went to an ENT last summer, because when all of that pops, it's like August through October. And I started to get really raspy.
Yeah.
And I didn't have a range. Like I couldn't do my, hi, I'm Mickey Mouse. Mickey. I couldn't do that, let alone sing,
Right.
and hit high notes. And it was super frustrating. And first I thought, oh, I'm just hoarse. And then I thought, oh, I must have a cold. And this went on for about a month. And I was like, I can't work. I was narrating through it, but my range was really limited. And so I went and I had that scope where they put the camera up your nose, all the way down. And it was, I could think of worse places to be scoped. So
always, right?
Yeah. So it was just determined that I just had a lot of mucus on my cords. Like I thought I had nodes or something, no vocal nodes. It was just mucus, and it was allergy related. So I will, first thing in the morning when I blow my nose, I squirt some just saline spray, which kind of cuts that. I'll gargle with salt water, and try not to scream, which, doesn't always work. Not living by yourself with other human beings in the house.
That especially, I think everybody's finding it, probably more of that right now with everybody home.
I know.
We're on top of each other and nobody's.
But aren't we just? I just feel really lucky. I think we were talking before you went live how my husband's able to work from home. I'm obviously able to work from home. My son, who's in high school, was already set up for virtual days. With a school
what a blessing.
Laptop. What a blessing. We live, within walking distance of, it's just not crowded. It's not dense. And I have a stepdaughter. Hey, Jenny, if you're listening or watching, she and her husband are on Long Island. And luckily they live full time on a 400 or 500 nature reserve that's a summer camp in the summer. So they're pretty isolated, and then they have all that space to go out. They have a 5-month-old daughter who we're missing seeing, the first grandbaby. But super scary being in, Washington where you are, super scary being in certain places. And so we're really lucky that, my husband, we ride our bikes and we don't go on the bike path. Just don't people path, it's because it's and he'll say, yeah, bike path is too crowded. And I just have to laugh because, for us it is, because we're not used to see that many people out. But, when you think about like walking the streets of Manhattan, it's really not.
It's crazy. I find myself doing it in my car now. It's like when I drive, I'm social distancing from other cars. It's hilarious. I catch myself doing it. Life is weird. So, somebody asked if you have pets to talk to, and you had mentioned a German Shepherd earlier.
I do. We have 2 German Shepherds. Gertie is our 8.5-year-old, and she's was bred for canine guard dog, fiercely loyal, best girl in the world. And then we have Leo. I wanted a dog who was a little less intense. So he was bred for problem solving and temperament. And so he's 2, and he just wants to be in your lap.
Yeah.
He's in your lap, and he's am I hearing a siren?
Oh, yeah, sorry. That's in my world.
Oh, okay. I was like, it couldn't be here in the booth, or that would be really
That would be really close. No, you're okay.
And then we have 2 cats too. So we've got Mrs. Peepers and Sophie. So.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, my dog was bred for lion hunting. He's a Ridgeback, and he is also fiercely protective. He wants to eat all the delivery people that come to the house and that sort of thing. But he is completely under the thumb is not the right word, but under the control of my old fat cat.
Oh, nice.
Who rules him. So we had one more question somebody asked before we started, which was, what do you think is the biggest thing that people overlook or don't think about that goes into making an audiobook?
Oh, wow. Yeah, I saw that one. I think it's, I'm just going to speak from the my perspective, I guess. Is I can't really say like for people who are non-performers or entertainers, but I know there's a lot of people who, they're starting out, or they think, hey, I read to my kids in bed, and I think I'd really be good at this. And it's like students who have come to me, and that's great because you have to start somewhere. But I would say the training that's involved.
Right.
You just can't. I mean, you can literally, with your closet and your clothes and pillows and a laptop and a USB plug-in mic, and boom, you're a podcaster, or boom, you're, these days with the internet and all the different platforms, you're an audiobook narrator. But it's, it really is, I think the better narrators, they have some semblance of training.
Right.
Whether it's, acting or broadcasting, being behind a microphone, or just I'm going to go from being a veterinarian to be an audiobook narrator. That's what I want to do now. Just get some training.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So speaking of that, and this is the last question. Do you do training? You said you do sometimes. Is that something that you offer, or?
Yeah, not right now. I have done workshops. What did I do? I went to one of the talent agencies in Indianapolis and did just kind of a commercial training event for some of their talent. I've worked locally here at Antioch College, just doing some evening classes. When I lived in Detroit, and the internet and being able to audition, out on your own from your home, that kind of started happening in the late 2000s. I noticed there wasn't a lot of training in Detroit, so I used to do a lot of it there.
Right.
And I invited people like Pat Fraley, Sherry Berger, who's in Chicago, Pamela Lewis, to come, and I would host them in voiceover training events at recording studios, which that was a lot of fun. So I have, and sometimes I go back to it, but I'm not. I've got a lot of audiobook work, thankfully, right now. Yeah, I have a lot. A lot going on. So.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And there's so many more. I have so many more questions, but we're already gone longer than I meant to.
We'll have to come back, and we'll have to for a borrowed life.
Yeah.
We'll have to come back when that hits.
Yeah. So yes, I'm very excited about that. Which is in September. So speaking of borrowed life, this is world in COVID, right? I got my ARCs yesterday. I'm pretty sure, because I got like 3 boxes of something from Brilliance, but they're in my quarantine place. It's like we don't touch anything when it comes in for 48 hours. Right. So I'm sitting here looking at these boxes going, I know what's in there.
I know
and I really want to
I can't. Yeah. Oh, that's cool. Yeah. Brilliance Audio. Yeah. I'm narrating Borrowed Life for one of your Carrie Ann King books for Brilliance Audio. Yeah.
Fantastic. So I'm super excited about that. Thank you all for listening, and those of you who commented, and for being here. And you, if you're listening, you can I will post some pictures so that you can see them if you want to hop onto my website at writeattheedge.com. And that's about it. Unless just a reminder that the Kerry Schafer Shadow Valley Manor books are now, the 2 that exist are now both available on audio as of yesterday, and I am writing book number 3. So there will be another one for you to read.
Yay!
Yay! I'm so excited.
Love it.
Something really cool happened in that book. It
Oh,
always
very
surprises
cool.
me.
Oh, I can't
It's
wait.
very fun.
I love
So
it.
thank you so much, Terry.
Thank you, Terry. This is awesome.
Yeah. I love
Fun.
getting to talk to you and see your face. So
Yeah, I know. Me too. Me too.
Very
Your
cool.
face. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know, when you're on like this, it always is kind of like the mirror. It's like, how's my hair? What's it?
I
Anyway,
know.
so,
I know. So we had to do this to start out. Yeah, I had to so I'm going to put a little face on today because
Yeah.
I am going to be on camera with scare people. Yeah.
I have not had makeup on in 2 weeks, I don't think. So
Oh, I know. Me longer. And my hair was like I was vacuuming. I was cleaning the house. My hair was in a top knot. I'm like, oh, what time is it?
Right. Yeah. So, well, thank you for doing this with us. Thank you all for listening, and go do something for the writers and makers of books and audio narrators in your world. Go read a book or listen to a book and support the people who make the books you love. And take care, be safe, and I'll be talking to you again later. Bye.
Bye.